I never expected my last summer before senior year to change everything. I thought it would be quiet, maybe even boring. My parents had decided we would spend 3 months at my grandmother's old house in Willow Creek, a tiny town where the biggest excitement was the weekly farmers market. At first, I hated the idea. Mom, I'll miss everything. My friends, summer parties, the beach. How can you do this to me? I had protested loudly. Mom just gave me that tired look. Chloe, it'll be good for you. Time away from the city, time to reflect. And your grandmother's house needs fixing up. So, there I was, sitting in the backseat of Dad's old car, sulking as we drove into a town that looked like it had been frozen in time. Wooden porches, old diners, friendly faces that seemed to know everyone's business. That's when I first saw him. He was leaning against a bike outside the diner, messy brown hair falling into his eyes, a smirk tugging at his lips as he laughed with a group of friends. Something about him made my heart skip. He looked different, confident, carefree, and completely out of place in such a sleepy town. Later that evening, while exploring the neighborhood, I saw him again, this time alone, fixing the chain on his bike. I hesitated, then walked over. Need help? I asked awkwardly. He glanced up, smirked, and shook his head. Nah, I've got it. But thanks, city girl. I blinked. City girl? He shrugged. I saw you drive in. You don't exactly look like Willow Creek material. Wow, I said, crossing my arms. Do you always insult strangers, or am I just lucky? That made him laugh. I'm Jake, he said, wiping grease from his hands. Chloe, I replied, trying not to smile back. Something shifted in that moment. I didn't know it then, but meeting Jake was the beginning of a summer I would never forget, a summer of secrets, heartbreak, and choices I wasn't ready to make. The days in Willow Creek moved slower than I was used to. In the city, everything was noise, rushing, deadlines, and endless notifications on my phone. Here, mornings started with the sound of birds, afternoons with the hum of cicadas, and evenings with the glow of fireflies. At first, I felt restless. My friends were texting me about pool parties and late-night drives, and I felt left out, stuck in this old creaky house with peeling wallpaper. But then, there was Jake. I started running into him more often, at the diner, the general store, even the small library downtown. Sometimes, I wondered if it was coincidence, or if he somehow knew I'd be there. One afternoon, I found him sitting by the lake, skipping stones. I hesitated before walking over, but he glanced up, his smirk familiar. City girl, he greeted. Didn't think you'd survive this long without Starbucks. I rolled my eyes but sat down beside him. Funny, I'm tougher than I look. For a moment, we just sat in silence, watching the ripples in the water. Then he asked quietly, so, why'd you come here? I shrugged. Didn't have a choice. My parents dragged me. Apparently, the city's corrupting me or something. He chuckled softly. Figures. Most people here spend their whole lives trying to get out. And you? You're stuck here for the summer. I glanced at him. And what about you? You look like you don't belong here either. Something flickered in his eyes then, something guarded, like a wall he didn't want me to climb. He looked away, tossing another stone. Maybe I don't. We spent hours talking by the lake. About music, movies, silly things, and even serious things. He was smart, funny, but also distant, as if there were parts of himself he kept locked away. When the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky pink and gold, he stood up, brushing dirt off his jeans. Well, city girl, guess I'll see you around. As he walked away, I felt a strange pull in my chest. Jake wasn't like the guys back home. He was unpredictable, mysterious. And something in me needed, to know more. But deep down, I sensed it already. Jake wasn't telling me everything. And whatever secret he was hiding, would change my life. The more time I spent in Willow Creek, the more I found myself drawn to Jake. He had this way of making me forget how much I hated being stuck in that little town. He was exciting, unpredictable, and even though he teased me constantly, I felt like he actually saw me. One evening, I snuck out after dinner. The air was warm, heavy with the smell of grass and wildflowers. I found Jake leaning against his bike outside the diner, like he'd been waiting for me. Took you long enough, he said with that infuriating smirk. Excuse me? I laughed. I didn't realize we had an appointment. Maybe not, he said, tilting his head. But I had a feeling you'd show up. We rode his bike down back roads, the wind in my hair, my arms wrapped tightly around his waist. My heart hammered in my chest, not just from the ride, but from being so close to him. We ended up at the lake again, the moon reflecting on the water like glass. We sat on the dock, feet dangling above the surface. For a while, neither of us spoke. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Then, I asked softly, "Why do you act like you don't belong here?" Jake tensed. His jaw tightened as he looked out over the water. For a second, I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he sighed. "Because I don't. This town, it isn't me. I'm just passing through." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. He hesitated, then shook his head. "Forget it. You wouldn't understand." I frowned, frustrated. "Why do you do that? Why do you shut me out whenever I ask something real?" His eyes met mine then, intense, almost desperate. "Because, Chloe, some things are better left unsaid. Some things, you don't want to know." Before I could respond, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't soft or careful, it was urgent, like he was trying to push all his secrets down and pour everything he couldn't say into that one kiss. My heart raced, my mind spinning. When he finally pulled away, I could barely breathe. "Jake," I whispered, stunned. He stood quickly, running a hand through his messy hair. "I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry." "Why?" I asked, confused and hurt. "Because you don't know the truth about me," he said quietly. "And when you do, you'll wish we never met." And just like that, he grabbed his bike and rode off, leaving me standing there on the dock, heart pounding, more confused than ever. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I kept replaying his words over and over. The truth. The truth about what? I didn't know what Jake was hiding. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him push me away. Not now. The next few days were torture. Jake avoided me. At the diner, he'd barely nod. At the lake, he was nowhere to be found. Even when I spotted him riding through town, he wouldn't slow down, wouldn't even look at me. I told myself to let it go, that maybe it was better this way. But I couldn't. Something about him had already tangled itself into my chest, and I needed answers. Finally, one hot afternoon, I found him sitting alone behind the old gas station, fiddling with his bike. His shirt clung to his skin from the heat, his hair messy, his face shadowed with frustration. "Jake," I said, walking over. He froze but didn't look up. "What are you doing here? Why are you avoiding me?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Because it's easier." His voice was low, almost bitter. "Easier for who?" I shot back. "Because it's not easier for me. I deserve to know the truth, Jake. Whatever it is you're hiding, just tell me." He finally looked at me then, eyes stormy, filled with something between anger and sadness. "You really want to know?" "Yes," I whispered, my stomach twisting. He tossed the wrench aside, running a hand over his face. "Fine. My family moved here 6 months ago, but not by choice. We're hiding. My dad screwed up, big time. Money, debts, the kind of trouble you don't just walk away from. That's why we're here. That's why I keep my distance. Because anyone who gets close to me ends up getting hurt." I stared at him, stunned. "You think I care about that? You think knowing your family has problems makes me want to run?" "You should run," he snapped. "Because nothing about my life is simple, Chloe. You don't get it. I can't promise you anything. Not a future, not even tomorrow. I'm a mess. My family's a mess." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I stepped closer, forcing him to look at me. "Maybe you're right. Maybe you're a mess. But so am I. Everyone is. That doesn't mean you get to shut me out." His expression softened, the walls in his eyes cracking just a little. He whispered, "Why do you care so much?" "Because I see you, Jake," I said. "Not the secrets. Not the lies. Just you." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he exhaled shakily and looked away. "You're going to regret this," he muttered. But I knew, deep down, I wouldn't. That night, as I walked back to my grandmother's house, my heart was racing. I finally had a piece of the truth, but it only made me want to know more. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Jake was hiding was only the beginning. The heat of July pressed heavy over Willow Creek. The whole town seemed to slow down under the weight of the sun, but inside me, everything felt sharper, louder. After Jake's confession, I couldn't stop thinking about him, or about what else he was hiding. One night, I caught him outside my grandmother's fence. He leaned casually against his bike, but his eyes told a different story. Restless, almost desperate. "You're going to get me grounded for life," I whispered, slipping outside barefoot. "Worth it," he said softly. Then, more seriously, "Come with me." I hesitated only a second before nodding. We rode into the night, the air cooler against my skin as the fields whipped by. Finally, he stopped on the edge of town, near an old abandoned barn. Inside, it smelled of dust and hay. He sat on a broken crate, motioning for me to join him. "I wasn't completely honest with you," he admitted, his voice low. "It's not just my dad who's in trouble. It's me too." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean?" Jake rubbed the back of his neck. "Back home, before we came here, I got mixed up with the wrong people. Running errands, delivering stuff I shouldn't have. At first it felt harmless, fast cash, no questions asked. But then things got dangerous. People got hurt, and if those guys ever find me..." He trailed off, his jaw tight. The silence between us grew heavy. Finally, I whispered, "Jake, you're not that person anymore." He laughed bitterly. "Don't be so sure. Look at me," I said, forcing him to meet my eyes. "You're here. You're trying. That means something." For a moment, he looked like he wanted to believe me. His hand brushed mine, tentative, unsure. Then he whispered, "You make me want to be better. But wanting and being are two different things." I squeezed his hand. "Then let me help you. Don't push me away." He didn't answer, but the way he looked at me, like I was the only light in a dark room, was enough. Later that night, when he walked me back, he stopped just before I slipped inside the house. "Chloe," he said, his voice barely audible. "If things ever get bad, promise me you'll stay away from me." I opened my mouth to protest, but he shook his head. "Promise." My heart ached, but I nodded. "Fine. I promise." He gave me a small, sad smile, then disappeared into the night. As I climbed back into bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning. I didn't know what was coming, but one thing was clear. This summer was no longer just about me being stuck in Willow Creek. I was caught in Jake's storm. And storms have a way of destroying everything in their path. The days that followed were a mix of tension and stolen moments. Jake became both distant and magnetic, avoiding me when he could, yet drawing me in whenever our paths crossed. Every glance, every touch, carried weight, a silent message I couldn't fully understand. One morning, I found him at the lake before anyone else. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. He was sitting on the dock, head down, hands clasped together. "Hey," I said softly, stepping closer. He looked up, eyes shadowed. "Hey." We sat in silence, listening to the water lap against the wooden posts. Finally, I asked, "Jake, why are you so afraid to let anyone in?" He shrugged, his gaze distant. "Because people I let in, they get hurt. And I can't handle hurting someone like you, Chloe. I can't." I shook my head, frustrated but understanding. "You're not going to hurt me by being honest. You're going to hurt me by keeping secrets. You've already done that, don't keep doing it." His eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through. "I wish I could just tell you everything. But some things, you can't unhear. You can't unsee. I don't need perfection, Jake. I just need honesty." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he exhaled shakily and finally whispered, "There's more than just trouble with my past. Chloe, I'm not supposed to be here this summer. My dad, he owes money to dangerous people. And if they find me, or us..." His voice trailed off, fear evident in every word. I reached out, placing my hand over his. "Then let me help. We'll figure it out. You're not alone." For the first time that morning, a faint smile broke across his face. "You really are crazy, you know that?" "I prefer brave," I shot back, smiling. He chuckled softly, but the tension never left his eyes. And in that moment, I realized this summer was about more than just a crush or a fleeting romance. It was about survival, trust, and choices. Choices that could either save or destroy us. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Jake was a storm I couldn't ignore, and I was already in too deep. A week later, the tension reached a breaking point. Jake's secret life was no longer something we could skirt around. One afternoon, as we sat on the grass outside the diner, he finally confessed more. "I didn't just get caught up with the wrong people," he said, voice low. They want me to do something illegal. And if I don't, they'll hurt my family. My mom, my little brother. I can't risk it." I felt my stomach twist. "Jake, why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have figured this out together." He shook his head. "I wanted to protect you. The more I involve you, the more danger you're in. I can't let anyone else get hurt because of me." I reached for his hand. "Jake, I'm already in this. Whether you like it or not, I care. And you can't push me away. Not now." His eyes searched mine, torn between fear and longing. "You don't understand, it's bigger than us. Bigger than the summer, bigger than Willow Creek. If they find me." "I get it," I said, my voice trembling. "I understand more than you think. But we'll face it. Together. You're not alone anymore." For the first time, he let himself lean on me, not just physically but emotionally. He rested his head against my shoulder, and I held him tight, feeling the weight of his secrets and the urgency of our situation. The next few days were tense, planning how to navigate his threats. We had to be careful. Friends couldn't know, his family couldn't know, and most importantly, no one could suspect that Jake wasn't just a small-town teen with a summer crush. Even with the fear, moments of normalcy crept in. We rode bikes, swam in the lake, and even laughed like teenagers again. But beneath the smiles, the storm was always there, a ticking clock threatening to pull everything apart. One night, as we watched fireflies dance in the dark, I whispered, "Jake, no matter what happens, I'm not leaving." He looked at me, vulnerability raw in his eyes. "You have no idea what you're signing up for." "Maybe," I said softly. "But I'm not afraid. Not of you. Not of the storm. Not of this summer. We'll face it together." And for the first time, he smiled, not a smirk, not a playful grin, but a real, honest smile. The days passed in a blur of heat, tension, and stolen moments. Every time we thought things might calm down, a new complication would arise. Jake received threatening messages, mysterious phone calls, and once, I even saw a shadowy figure watching the lake where we met. One afternoon, Emily, a girl from the town who had befriended me, approached, concern etched on her face. "Chloe, something's going on with Jake, isn't it?" she asked cautiously. I hesitated, unsure what to reveal. "It's complicated," I admitted. "You can trust me," she said softly. "I know more than you think. And I want to help." Before I could respond, Jake appeared, his face pale, eyes darting around. "Chloe, we need to move. Now." He grabbed my hand, and without another word, we raced through the back roads, his bike speeding through the winding paths. My heart hammered, not just from the ride, but from the adrenaline, from fear, and from the thrill of being with him despite the danger. We stopped in a secluded spot, hidden from the town. He turned to me, voice tense. "They know I'm here. They're coming. We have to leave Willow Creek for a while." I swallowed hard. "Leave? Just like that? Where would we go?" "Anywhere they can't find us," he said, eyes serious. "But you have to trust me, Chloe. No questions. This is about keeping you safe." I felt a rush of fear and adrenaline, but also something else, determination. "I trust you," I said firmly. "I'm not letting you face this alone." For the first time, Jake's defenses completely fell. He pulled me into a tight embrace, holding me as if letting go would mean losing everything. "You don't know what you're getting into," he whispered. "I don't care," I said. "We'll figure it out. Together." As night fell over the quiet town, we made plans. Escape wasn't just about running, it was about survival, strategy, and trust. And for the first time, I realized that this summer wasn't just a story of a fleeting romance. It was about courage, loyalty, and facing storms that no one else could understand. The following nights were a blur of whispered plans and hurried preparations. Jake and I moved quietly through Willow Creek, gathering essentials, changing routes, and avoiding anyone who might recognize us. Every sound, every shadow, made my heart race. One evening, as we hid in an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town, Jake finally opened up more. "I never asked for any of this," he admitted, voice low. "I just wanted a normal summer, normal life. But my past, it follows me everywhere." I reached for his hand. "Jake, we can't change the past. But we can choose what to do next. We survive. Together." He nodded, squeezing my hand tightly. "You don't know how much that means. You shouldn't be here. You should be safe. But you make me want to fight. And I don't know how to thank you for that." I smiled softly. "You don't need to thank me. Just promise me something. Promise me you won't run away alone. No more secrets. No more lies." For a moment, he looked like he was going to argue. Then, finally, he whispered, "I promise." That night, we slept on the cold barn floor, close but not touching, hearts still pounding from fear and adrenaline. Outside, the world seemed quiet, but inside, we knew danger was just around the corner. The next morning, Jake checked his phone nervously. "They're on to me," he said grimly. "We have to leave tonight. There's no time to waste." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. This wasn't a summer fling anymore. This was survival. And every choice mattered, not just for us, but for the people who depended on us. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the fields, we mounted his bike, ready to leave everything behind. The town we had laughed in, the lake we had shared secrets at, even my grandmother's house, gone in an instant. All that mattered now was each other, and the storm we were riding into together. And in that moment, as the wind whipped past us and the road stretched endlessly ahead, I realized something. Love and courage weren't easy. They were messy, terrifying, and sometimes unstoppable. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Because I had Jake, and he had me. And for now, that was enough. Night fell as we rode away from Willow Creek, the town shrinking behind us in the glow of distant streetlights. My heart pounded, every muscle tense, but there was a strange clarity in the chaos. For the first time, fear and hope existed together, side by side. Jake glanced at me, eyes shadowed with worry and something softer, relief. "Chloe, I don't know what the next few days will bring. But I'm glad you're here." I gripped his hand tightly. "We'll face it together, no matter what." Hours passed as we rode through quiet roads, stopping only when absolutely necessary. Each moment was a mix of adrenaline and uncertainty. We had no plan beyond surviving the night, and the danger lurking behind us felt real with every mile. At one point, we stopped by a small creek, exhaustion overtaking us. Jake lay back on the grass, staring at the stars. I sat beside him, catching my breath. "You're unbelievable," he said quietly. "I don't know how you stay so strong. Most people would have run screaming by now." "I've had practice," I said, managing a weak smile. "Life has a funny way of throwing storms at you." He laughed softly, the sound mingling with the night air. "Yeah, I guess we've both been thrown into one this summer." We stayed there until dawn, wrapped in quiet conversation and the comforting rhythm of each other's presence. By morning, we had made a tentative plan. Head to a nearby city, lay low, and find a way to resolve Jake's dangerous ties safely. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. As we mounted the bike and continued our journey, I realized something profound. This summer, which had started as a simple escape to a small town, had become a crucible, testing trust, courage, and love. Jake's secrets had threatened to destroy everything, but facing them together had forged a bond neither danger nor fear could break. For the first time in my life, I understood that real courage wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about facing them, hand in hand with someone you trusted. And I knew, no matter what lay ahead, we could survive it. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink, I felt a quiet sense of hope. The summer had changed everything, my life, my heart, my perspective. And though the road was uncertain, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, we would face it together.